therefore, I, as governor of the state of Indiana, and in behalf of all the citizens of the Hoosier State, do hereby proclaim the year AD as Purdue Centennial Year. And I further urge all citizens to join me in an expression of pride in the accomplishments of Purdue University as it pursues a second century of service, in witness whereof I have signed hereunto my hand and caused the seal of the state of Indiana to be affixed on this 15th day of January, 1969. Edgar D. Whitcomb, Governor of the state of Indiana. Thank you so much.
Governor and Mrs. Whitcomb, ladies and gentlemen, friends of Purdue University. The coming of this year of our Lord 1969 marks the beginning of a proud year in the history of Purdue University. It is, of course, our...
President Hovde made an important speech on this great occasion. We shall hear more of it later. Also on the program was this presentation.
The undergraduate students of Purdue University, thankful that this campus does provide these opportunities for them, show their appreciation on this occasion by the presentation of Purdue's Centennial flag. This has been prepared especially for this occasion and is the gift of the undergraduate students.
The Centennial symbol stands for Progress Unlimited, as well as you know what.
This Centennial flag, this gift from the undergraduate students at Purdue, will be displayed throughout 1969 on the flagstaff on the Oval and in other prominent and appropriate places around the campus.
Seeing this flag beside John Purdue's grave, one can't help but think how amazed he would have been to see this scene today. Physically, in buildings, bodies, and budgets, the university has grown about 1,000-fold since his time, and it's grown even more in the accumulation and communication of knowledge. In the fall of 1968, there were almost 25,000 students enrolled here. Though they were a select group in terms of academic ability and career interests, they were in other ways a heterogeneous group, including people of all races, colors, and faiths, religious and political, a true cross-section of democracy. And like the population at large that year, they were worried and tense. It was a time of great social, political, and economic unrest in the world, and the national elections called for action on many controversial issues, some of which were of particular concern to young people. Recognizing the situation, the trustees granted use of part of the Oval as an open forum site and allowed political candidates to campaign on campus. This rally for this alumnus was the first of many student political activities which colored and discolored this year at Purdue. But many old traditions were also memorably reinforced. Senior cords made a strong showing for the 81st year, though the beards largely blended in with or gave way in protest to a growing fashion in beards. Football reached a new all-time peak in popularity. From preseason through the first two games, the Boilermaker squad was rated #1 in the nation, thanks to the hard work of the coaches in recruiting and training, arduous teamwork, some gifted players, and enthusiastic support of the crowd. Spirit dropped a bit when we failed to score against Ohio State, but it came right back up for homecoming. We lost one other conference game to Minnesota, but otherwise it was a fine season, climaxed by this action in the last 2 minutes of the Indiana game. With Purdue trailing 35-31, junior Mike Phipps fired one of his famous passes to Leroy Keys, who advanced it to the IU 39. With 1st and 10 to go, Phipps found Bob Dillingham on the east sideline at the IU 31. Three plays later, Phipps spotted Greg Fenner open in the middle and passed to him for a first down that carried to the IU 1-yard line. On the next play, Leroy Keys took a handoff from Phipps and smashed through the middle for the winning touchdown, making the final score Purdue 38, Indiana 35. Three great performers leave the field for the last time for the Boilermakers. Leroy Keys, Perry Williams, and Bob Dillingham. Of course, the main thing at Purdue this fall, this year, and all the time is study. Learning first the thoughts of others, learning next to judge their works, and finally to do one's own thing, to discover through research. That's what Purdue's all about. But it isn't just the students and faculty who study at Purdue. Purdue also hosts some 80,000 conference guests a year. These scenes were taken at the 4th Annual Alumni Day program of the School of Home Economics held in October. The program included 4 refresher sessions and a business meeting, as well as this luncheon, where the head of the Department of Home Economics at Howard University was the featured speaker. It was a typically beautiful autumn with plenty to do besides study. Fraternities and sororities revived the Greek Week Carnival after a few years' lapse to raise money for campus chest. Following the Illinois game on Dad's Day, the men of Pi Kappa Alpha and Pi Kappa Phi held their annual pie eating contest. It got a little easier to study around Thanksgiving, but not much. The scenery was still distracting, and there were new entertainments and activities, and new special interest groups forming all the time. In such a large student body, even the smallest minority groups can do very significant things. It was about this time that 2 small groups began new newspapers, one more conservative and one more radical than the exponent. That a few sophomores arranged a public forum to discuss student apathy and activism with President Hovde. That a few foreign students set up 18 impressive exhibits for the Student Union annual Christmas party. And that most people left for the holidays and a much-needed rest. January was a quiet time as students crammed and took final exams and another short vacation. By February 1st, it was obvious to everyone that Purdue had a great basketball team, and record crowds turned out to encourage them, even in weather like this. That evening, an equally hearty crowd filled both Union ballrooms to honor 2 of Purdue's best-known and hardest-working alumni, Eth Baugh, Public Relations Manager of the Purdue Alumni Association, and Cordy Hall, Founder and Executive Director of the Alumni Scholarship Foundation. Both were retiring this year.
There's no possible way I, as president, can thank these men for what they've done for the university, which comes out of this deep love and affection which began lo these many years ago. But it seems to me the presence of all you people here tonight is a kind of heartwarming expression of what you feel for them. This is exactly what the university feels for you.
For most of the people on campus that night, careers were just beginning, however, and for them this was a time for more study in the labs and libraries and dormitories and in their rooms all around Lafayette. February was another quiet month, the most unusual thing being a protest outside the placement service for its cooperation with the CIA. In March, the track team held its last indoor meet of the season on the new resinous floor of the field house. And students began lingering on the steps to enjoy the sun. In no time at all, they were back on the oval. On the first and second Saturdays in March, the Red Cross set up a blood donor station in the St. Thomas Aquinas Center and collected almost 600 pints of whole blood, mostly from students. The drive was organized by the Semper Fidelis Society, a small group of ROTC students. This year saw the beginning of several new Purdue courses and programs designed especially for black students. One of the most successful was Mission Possible, a 3-day conference on opportunities for careers in business, co-sponsored by the Office of Black Student Affairs and the Placement Service. 60 business organizations and all of the schools on campus provided exhibits and representatives to explain their needs and what they had to offer. A number of Indiana high school students also attended and learned much about the value of a college education. On March 8th, the Purdue basketball team finished its regular season and took over as Big Ten champions for the first time in 29 years. They set 27 new records along the way. In the NCAA regionals, they beat Miami of Ohio 91-71, but Marquette was not so easy. For the 4th time of the year, the team had to work into overtime to finish what it had started. Back in Lafayette a few nights later, there was another rally, or what the PEP committee fondly called the first annual basketball send-off to the NCAA Finals Pep-In. At this point, the team was just 2 games away from a possible national championship. On the morning after they beat North Carolina in Louisville, the campus looked like this. 2 nights later, the team faced UCLA for the 2nd time that year. They'd come a long way since the beginning of the season, but so had Big Lou and company. The basketball season finally ended several weeks later than usual with the annual Lions Club banquet. Members of the 1940 championship team were among those on hand for presentation of awards to Herm Gilliam, to Rick Mount, and to Coach George King for the team. Right in the middle of the great basketball excitement, right between Madison and Louisville, the trustees announced a large increase in student fees. Despite already reduced federal support and the fact that the university had more students and knowledge to cope with than ever, the state government decided to cut its appropriations for the campus. Though the possibility of such an increase had been discussed for months, many students were shocked by the actuality. Many felt that they were being victimized by the state and/or the administration, and that if they complained enough, some means might be found to reduce the fee increase. In mid-April, students set up a picnic lunch service on the Oval and called for a financial boycott of the Purdue Memorial Union. This appeared to be more fun than effective and was discontinued after about 2 weeks. Next, they clamored at the Executive Building. On April 22nd, a public meeting was arranged with the administration, and 7,000 students flooded the Hall of Music and Loeb Theater. It was a tense meeting with lots of straight talk and concessions to show good faith on both sides. In the end, most students were convinced that the administration was doing what it had to do to maintain the excellence of the university. The following week, however, a few hundred diehards and adventurers decided to stage an around-the-clock live-in in the Union lounges. They were there during Gala Week, when an estimated 1,500 alumni returned for the traditional march to John Purdue's grave, class reunions, banquets, and sports. The Twilight Concert that weekend was a good time and place to see and think about other aspects of Purdue. It was interesting to think that in just 4 days, Purdue would be exactly 100 years old. That in just 3 weeks, 2 men, including Purdue alumnus Eugene Cernan, were scheduled to fly around the moon, just 9 miles above its surface. On Founders Day, May 6th, a special convocation was held to mark the beginning of the 2nd century of Purdue University. Many distinguished guests were present from government and other universities. The principal speaker was Dr. Robert H. Finch, Secretary of the Department of Health, Education, and Welfare. His prepared speech could not have been more timely, not just in terms of the Centennial, but because of student rebellion and arrests earlier that day.
This brings us then to the final question. Before this or any other present-day academic convocation, the thing we thrash out in our department that is being discussed in the halls of Congress, the question is this: is the land-grant idea, the concept of democracy's college, now an idea fulfilled, or is it an idea still searching for renewal appropriate to our own day and for perpetual ongoing evolution? And I think the answer must be the latter. The university is, by its very definition, an institution always in tension. It is on the fulcrum between thought and action, between quiet contemplation and the urgencies of every day. It and its students and scholars are torn between the certain knowledge that the frame of their enterprise is uncertainty, and the impulse always is to be up and about the world's work. And this tension, I submit, is a healthy burden. It is a mark of vigorous growth. And George Bernard Shaw expressed one half of the university's paradox, indeed the paradox of humanity at large. He said he hoped the university would never cease to stand for the future and the past, for the posterity that has no vote and the tradition that never had any, for the great abstractions, for the eternal against the expedient, for the evolutionary appetite against the day's gluttony, for intellectual integrity, and yes, for humanity. And balanced against this view, we have to ponder Alfred North Whitehead's warning that celibacy does not suit a university. It must mate itself with action. And this great institution has always struck the balance, has always mated the fruits of scholarship with accomplishments on behalf of the nation and mankind as a whole. And I ask you to forgive me if I presume today to speak for both. May this institution live and grow and flourish for 100 years and 100 years and 100 years more. Thank you very much.
Following the convocation, a special luncheon was held to introduce the leaders of the Purdue University Centennial Fund Committee. The committee consists of about 30 alumni and university staff members, with Maynard C. Wheeler, class of 23, as national chairman. Their goal is to help raise $25 million in capital gifts for improvement of the university. More than 1/4 of that amount had already been pledged at the time of this meeting. Specifically, $10 million is sought for construction of a new Centennial library, needed to relieve congestion in the present quarters and to accommodate growing enrollment and future publications. Another $10 million is needed to establish this Engineering Graduate Research Center, a facility especially designed to handle the increasingly complex problems of modern living and the large interdisciplinary research teams needed to solve them. An additional $5 million is needed in university endowment, partly to ensure that the center will be adequately equipped and staffed. Just 3 months after this meeting, the fund passed its halfway mark, with faculty pledges alone totaling over $300,000. On May the 9th and 10th, Purdue had ready one of the largest air shows ever held in Indiana, but the weather put a damper on it. Rain kept attendance down and kept some of the flying acts grounded. Water doesn't daunt the Navy, however, and its Blue Angels jet demonstration team gave a great show against the unusual background. In mid-May, President Hovde and entertainers Roosevelt Greer and Pat Paulson dedicated a new Grand Prix racetrack. Then the 11th annual kart contest began, with 33 entries sponsored by various housing units. The new track is a permanent installation on the north end of the stadium parking lot. It features a special high-traction surface, tricky curves, and a good view for the entire audience. Construction was financed by a loan from the Alumni Scholarship Foundation, which this year, for the first time, took in over $1 million from this and other sources. Competition is keen to be the first one over 200 laps, or about 60 miles of the track, and speeds reach 50 miles per hour on some of the short straightaways. The winner this year was the Cecil Kurd Mahjong Victory Special No. 2, sponsored by Sigma Chi and Alpha Chi Omega. A kiss by the Grand Prix Queen was another highlight of the occasion for the winning driver. On June 8th, the university awarded degrees of baccalaureate or higher to over 3,100 graduates, making a total of over 5,600 for the year, a new record for the Lafayette campus. And somewhere in that group was Purdue's 100,000th graduate. Immediately after commencement, the Purdue Varsity Glee Club left for Hawaii and a combination vacation and concert tour, including performances at veterans hospitals and rehabilitation centers along the way. Just before summer classes began, members of the John Purdue Club met for their annual day of good fun, food, and fellowship at the Purdue golf courses. The John Purdue Club is a group of 1,600 alumni and friends who are dedicated financial boosters of Purdue athletics. We had a little rain on this occasion, too, but it takes more than that to dampen the spirits of this group. 2 weeks after commencement, the university began registration of students for the fall semester. In the course of 3 weeks, some 4,000 new students and their parents spent a day on campus for briefing, testing, and counseling. It was gratifying to see that many of the new students were sons and daughters of alumni, being recognized here by Professor David Fendler, head of the general curriculum for the School of Agriculture. Academic offices of the Ag School were in new quarters and began new management this summer. Associate Dean V.C. Freeman retired after 30 years as Director of Resident Instruction, and Dr. A.R. Hilst was appointed as his successor. Dr. Hilst has been on the Purdue faculty for 20 years, so he's no stranger to other directors and department heads on the Ag staff, or to Dean Coles, with whom he'll be serving. Across campus, under the mall in front of the physics building, the new Van de Graaff tandem accelerator passed its final tests and was prepared for use. This $2 million, 7.5 million volt installation will be used as a research tool by nuclear physicists, nuclear chemists, and graduate students studying the behavior of nuclear particles. The facilities and research program are co-sponsored by the university, the National Science Foundation, and the Atomic Energy Commission. Summer school students have to have relaxation too. And one of their major social events is the Union's free outdoor dance, held on the sidewalk between the Union and Memorial Center. In mid-July, the university joined the rest of the world around TV receivers to watch the historic flight of Apollo 11, commanded by Purdue alumnus Neil Armstrong, aeronautical engineering class of 1955. As the flight neared the moon, Governor Whitcomb called a special press conference at Purdue to make another unusual proclamation.
Whereas the people of Indiana are proud of Purdue University for its great contributions to science and technology of space exploration, and wish to honor Purdue in this year of its first centennial. And whereas the people of Indiana are proud of all Indiana industries which contributed so much to the success of the space program. Therefore, I, Edgar D. Whitcomb, Governor of Indiana, do hereby proclaim that Monday, July the 21st, 1969, and every July the 21st thereafter, be designated as Apollo 11 Day.
As the Eagle left the Columbia and swooped in for the actual landing on the moon, shown here in movies taken aboard ship, the largest audience in all history listened and waited to see the first real man on the moon.
I'm going to step off the limb now. It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
And so it was that a Purdue engineer became the most famous and universal hero of all time, the living proof of new human capabilities derived through the systematic evolution of human knowledge and social order. That's what President Hovde's Centennial speech was about back in January. We would like to leave you with these excerpts of his thoughts.
Purdue University and the more than 100,000 members of her family are filled with pride as they look back along the runway she has traveled. And here today, looking down the runway of her second 100 years and speaking as president of this great university, I pledge her firm resolution to continue to serve the aspirations and the high goals of the people of Indiana as together we work to achieve ever higher levels of human welfare, happiness, and a better life for all our people. Thank you very, very much.